I didn't believe in ghosts until I started receiving texts from my own phone number, but it wasn't me sending them. That's how this nightmare began. For me, at least. For you? Well, maybe it already has. It was a Tuesday evening when the first message came through. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I glanced down without thinking much of it. The screen lit up with a notification, a text from an unknown number. Except it wasn't unknown. It was my name, my number, and it read, "You're running out of time." I stared at it for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. My hands trembled as I unlocked my phone and opened the conversation thread. There it was again, plain as day. From me, to me. I laughed nervously, assuming it was some kind of prank app or glitch. Maybe one of my friends had hacked into my iCloud account or something stupid like that. So, I replied back, angrily, if I'm being honest. "Who is this?" The response came instantly, almost too fast for human reflexes. "Someone who knows what you did." Now, let me stop right here because I can see your face scrunching up in confusion. What did I do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing worth haunting someone over. At least, that's what I thought then. But now I'm not so sure anymore. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Always late at night. Always cryptic enough to make my stomach churn, but vague enough to leave me grasping for answers. Things like, "Why haven't you told anyone about her? Do you think they'd forgive you if they knew?" And the worst one yet, "She's still waiting for you." By now, I was losing sleep. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow seemed to move just slightly out of sync with reality. I tried blocking the number, changing my SIM card, even getting a new phone altogether, but nothing worked. No matter what I did, the text found their way back to me. Then came the photos. One night, while scrolling through my gallery, because insomnia does weird things to people, I noticed something strange. A picture I didn't take, a selfie of sorts, but distorted, like it had been taken underwater. In the image, I could barely recognize myself. My eyes were hollow, my skin pale and waxy. Behind me, blurred but unmistakable, stood a figure, a woman, her face obscured by static, her arms reaching out toward me. I deleted the photo immediately, shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. But deep down I knew it wasn't gone. Nothing ever really goes away, does it? The next morning, I woke up to another message. This time, there was no text, just a link. Short, untraceable, ending in a string of random characters. Against every instinct screaming inside me, I clicked it. What followed was, well, it defies description. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, except instead of seeing your reflection, you see fragments of moments you don't remember living. Flashes of places you've never been, faces you don't recognize, voices whispering words you can't quite understand. And then, right at the center of it all, a name, written in bold, bloody letters across the screen. Claire. Do you know what happens when you try to outrun your own mind? When pieces of your past start surfacing in ways you can't control. That's where I found myself, trapped between denial and dread, desperate to uncover the truth before it consumed me entirely. Because Claire wasn't just a name. She was real, or at least she used to be. And somehow, she was connected to me in ways I couldn't, or wouldn't, remember. I spent the rest of that day trying to piece together who Claire was, or rather, what she meant to me. The name stirred something deep inside, like a splinter buried so far under my skin I couldn't see it, but could feel its presence with every move I made. It wasn't just unfamiliar. It felt forbidden, as though thinking about her too much might tear open some wound I wasn't ready to face. The first thing I did was search my phone for anything related to her. Old contacts, deleted messages, even cached data, anything that might give me a clue. But there was nothing. No record of anyone named Claire ever existing in my life. Not in my photos, not in my emails, not even in my social media history. If she had been real, it was as if she'd been erased completely. But then, I remembered something. Years ago, when I was still living at home, my parents used to talk about someone named Claire. At least, I think they did. My memories are hazy, fragmented, like watching an old VHS tape that skips every few seconds. All I can recall is their voices, hushed tones late at night, arguments behind closed doors. And once, just once, I heard my mother say, "We should have told him." Told me what? About Claire? Or something else entirely? That question haunted me more than the texts or the photos ever could. Because if Claire existed, and if my parents kept her existence from me, then what else were they hiding? What else had they erased? By the third day after clicking the link, things escalated. The messages stopped being subtle warnings and turned into outright threats. You won't find her in time. She's closer than you think. And then, one that froze my blood. Look behind you. I spun around so fast I nearly fell off my chair. My apartment was empty, silent save for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that someone or something was watching me. Later that night, I decided to dig deeper. I called my parents, hoping to confront them about Claire. But before I could even bring it up, my mom answered the phone with a voice trembling with fear. "Why are you asking about her?" she whispered, as though afraid someone might overhear. "How do you even know her name?" Her reaction confirmed everything I feared. Claire wasn't just a ghost from my past. She was a secret big enough to terrify my own family. When I pressed her for answers, my mom hesitated, choking back sobs. Finally, she said, "It wasn't your fault. You were only 6 years old." 6 years old? What could I have possibly done at that age to warrant this kind of torment? Before I could ask, she hung up, leaving me staring at the phone in stunned silence. The next morning, I woke up to find my bedroom door wide open. I could have sworn I locked it the night before. On the floor outside my room lay a single photograph. It was old, faded, torn at the edges. In it, I recognized myself as a child, standing beside a girl who looked eerily familiar. Her hair was blonde, her smile radiant, but her eyes, they weren't looking at the camera. They were staring directly at me, as if she knew I'd be holding this picture decades later. On the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were 2 words: "Forgive me." Desperate for answers, I drove to my childhood home. My parents lived in the same house where I grew up, though it hadn't felt like home in years. When I arrived, they refused to let me inside. Instead, they stood on the porch, their faces pale and drawn. "We didn't want you to remember," my dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We thought we were protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" I demanded, my voice cracking with frustration. They exchanged a glance, hesitant. Then my mom stepped forward, clutching an envelope in her hands. Inside was a newspaper clipping dated over 20 years ago. The headline read, "Local girl drowns in tragic accident. 6-year-old boy sole witness." The article went on to describe how a young girl named Claire had drowned in a nearby lake while playing with her best friend, a boy who happened to be me. According to witnesses, I had been the last person to see her alive. Some claimed I pushed her. Others said it was an accident. Either way, the trauma of that day erased any memory I had of her, or so my parents believed. But now, those memories were coming back. Not through dreams or flashbacks, but through the texts, the photos, the whispers. Someone, or something, wanted me to remember. And worse, they wanted me to pay. As I left my parents' house, I realized the messages had changed again. This time, they weren't coming from my phone. They were appearing everywhere, in mirrors, on walls, scrawled across receipts and sticky notes I found lying around my car. Each one carried the same message: "She's waiting for you at the lake." I couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever Claire was, or whatever she had become, she wasn't going to let me run away. So I went. I drove to the lake where she died, heart pounding in my chest, half expecting to wake up and realize this was all just a nightmare. When I arrived, the water was calm, reflecting the moonlight like glass. Standing at the edge of the dock, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Behind me, footsteps echoed softly against the wooden planks. "Claire," I whispered, turning slowly. And that's when I saw her. She looked exactly like she did in the photograph. Blonde hair, bright smile, piercing eyes. But something was wrong. Her reflection in the water didn't match her movements. While she stood still, her mirrored image reached out toward me, fingers stretching unnaturally long, lips curling into a grin that didn't belong on her face. "You left me here," she said, her voice soft but laced with venom. "All these years, and you never came back." I was a kid, I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't mean to." "It doesn't matter what you meant," she interrupted, stepping closer. "What matters is what you did." Before I could respond, the ground beneath me gave way, plunging me into the icy water. As I sank deeper, I saw her face hovering above the surface, watching me with cold indifference. And then, just as darkness began to swallow me whole, I heard her final words. "Now we're even." I woke up gasping for air, my lungs burning like fire. For a moment, I thought I was dead, or worse, trapped somewhere between life and whatever came after. But no, I was alive, shivering, drenched, and lying on the shore of the lake, coughing up water that tasted metallic, almost unnatural. Above me, the sky was gray, heavy with clouds that seemed too low, too close. My clothes clung to my skin, freezing and uncomfortable. Every breath felt like swallowing shards of glass. Yet despite the pain, one thing became painfully clear. Claire hadn't killed me. Not yet, anyway. As I staggered to my feet, I noticed something strange about the lake. It wasn't just calm, it was eerily still, as if time itself had stopped. There were no ripples, no breeze disturbing the surface. Even the birds overhead were silent, their wings frozen mid-flight. Everything around me felt wrong, like I'd stepped into a photograph instead of reality. And then I saw her again, not in front of me, but reflected in the water. Claire stood behind me, her distorted image staring back with those same hollow eyes. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear, but somehow understood. "You don't belong here anymore." Before I could react, the ground beneath my feet shifted. The earth cracked open, pulling me downward into darkness. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. All I could do was watch as the world above disappeared, replaced by an endless void. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't at the lake. I wasn't anywhere familiar. The room around me was small, dimly lit, and smelled faintly of mildew. Old furniture lined the walls, things I recognized from my childhood home, though they looked decades older than I remembered. A rocking chair creaked softly in the corner, though no one sat in it. On the far wall hung a mirror, its surface fogged over, as if someone had just breathed on it. In the center of the room was a table. On the table lay a single object, a Polaroid camera. My heart sank. I knew what this meant before I even touched it. This wasn't just any camera. It was the same one my parents used when I was a kid. The same one that captured the last photo I ever took of Claire before she died. Against every instinct screaming at me to leave, I picked up the camera. It felt heavier than it should have, cold and slick with condensation. As I turned it over in my hands, I noticed something etched into the back in faded ink. "Take one last picture." I wanted to throw it across the room, smash it against the wall, anything to get rid of it, but I couldn't. Something compelled me to raise it to my eye, peer through the viewfinder, and press the button. The flash blinded me momentarily, and when my vision cleared, I lowered the camera to examine the photo it had just developed. What I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't a picture of the room. It wasn't even a picture of me. Instead, it showed Claire standing exactly where I was now, holding the camera herself. Behind her, reflected in the foggy mirror, was me. Except I wasn't alone. Standing beside me was another version of myself, a younger, 6-year-old version. His face was pale, his expression blank, his hand clutching mine tightly. And then I realized he wasn't holding my hand. He was pulling me backward. Panic surged through me as I dropped the camera and spun around. Sure enough, there I was, the child version of myself, staring up at me with wide, unblinking eyes. His grip on my wrist tightened, nails digging into my skin. "You shouldn't have come back," he said, his voice high-pitched but chillingly adult. "She's waiting for you." "Ooh," I managed to choke out, though I already knew the answer. He didn't respond. Instead, he yanked me toward the mirror, dragging me closer until our reflections merged into one. The fog on the glass began to swirl, forming shapes, faces, hands, claw-like fingers reaching out from the other side. That's when I heard her laugh, low, guttural, and filled with malice. Claire's voice echoed all around me, bouncing off the walls, inside my head, everywhere at once. "Welcome home," she whispered. I woke up screaming. This time, I was in my bed, safe in my own apartment. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting long shadows across the floor. My phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand, lighting up with notifications. Relief washed over me so intensely I nearly cried. It was just a dream. Had to be. right? But then I looked down at my wrist. They are imprinted deeply into my skin, were 5 tiny bruises shaped like fingerprints. Bruises that match the grip of a 6-year-old boy's hand. And on my phone screen, flashing insistently, was a new message. From my number. Good morning. Ready to play again.